No, I'm not talking about giant robots with swords and anime girls within the same work of art. That would be the anime Escafraun, as they say in the show. Amazing battles on this one, by the way. Right, anyways, let's get to the actual subject of the video. But before continuing, Front Mission fans, I'm sorry for the video title and thumbnail. It was the fall of '93 when the now defunct software developer studio G-Craft came to an agreement with Square to create a strategy RPG for the Super Famicom. Square had never had another developer make a game for them, so this was an exciting first. In 1995, Front Mission was released for the Super Famicom to never hit the NES, which means for a long time, most of the West had no easy access to this game. The first Front Mission game wouldn't hit North America until 2007, when a port for the Nintendo DS was released. Front Mission 3 for the PlayStation would be the first game in the series to hit both North America and Europe, and it's this exact game I want to talk a tiny bit about. Front Mission 3 is very much a story-driven game, where it really feels like you're watching a more serious anime or reading a manga, But it's pretty slow, which makes sense, it's an RPG from '95 after all. That's not exactly a problem, by the way, I'm really not making any value judgment here. And how does it look? Well, I can safely say the game looks amazing. There's a lot of different architecture to see, many vehicles, many Wenzers, as the game's mechs are called, many character portraits, various graphic designs, and all of that looks amazing. Sure, they're mostly on the more serious side of stuff, but there's so much magic putting the 3 pixels per frame the original PlayStation could render. It feels like you could reach out to the screen and grab the little mechs by your own hands.
Huh. Neat.
By the way, the design of the mechs is really good in the sense that it's not just a guy in a robot suit, and it's not those American mechs either. It's a middle ground between the two things, and I tend to really like this kind of approach. The design is very reminiscent of Armored Core, and I like it a lot. It really feels like a big RPG right at the beginning. You go to this bar, and you can talk to the bartender, to the drunkard, to the patriot, and to a prostitute. This kind of interaction between the player and random characters isn't so common throughout the entire game though, and things become a bit more direct soon. This is fine, however, for the main cast is genuinely funny and you just gotta love some of the interactions you will see. A game, of course, isn't a game without game play. Whoa. Actually, that is a topic for another time. Anyways, in this turn-based tactical RPG, you have access to all sorts of weapons, ranging from melee, mid-range, and even long-range weapons that might only work at long range. So, for example, you might have to think carefully about a movement so as not to leave your character that only attacks at long range too close to the enemy, for it will be defenseless. Maybe, depending on how you build it. There are also shields, which only work when it's the opponent's turn and they attack you. When they do it, you can counter with one of your weapons. If you choose the shield, you decrease a lot of the damage you will take. Of course, the enemy can also counter your attacks, which makes the combat very dynamic and sort of unpredictable. In addition, characters have skills that can favor one or another playstyle. So a character that gets a lot of skills that favor melee, you're gonna want to put more melee weapons on his Wenzer, obviously. But then you could maybe try and balance this build by equipping not only melee weapons, but also, for example, a mid-range gun. Yes, there is mech customization. You can change the parts of your Wenzer as well as the weapon it carries, and their colors too. A mech that walks a lot can focus on close melee attacks. If you equip a mech with a leg part that makes it so it can walk that many squares per turn, you might want to also equip it with a long-range missile weapon, so it can actually reach your opponents and not have to enter their range of attacks. There is also no permadeath, and there are repair kits in the middle of matches, if you choose to equip those. So, while this still is a turn-based tactics game, these two things encourage very aggressive gameplay from the player, helping the game feel a bit faster, because you will end up being encouraged to not spend that much time thinking about what to do. I, as a guy who enjoys a lot of action games, appreciate this a lot. Also, there is this very unique thing where characters can exit their Wenzers mid-fight and enter other people's Wenzers, which is something that can only happen in a game about mechs. So that's charming. Of course, these human beings pale in comparison to their mech's might, but there is some use to it since you can simply board enemies' Wenzers too. However, even with all these mechanics, the game still feels a tad slow, which is fine, of course, but since it's so slow and all that, it could also have taken the opportunity to do a bit of a power fantasy, where, say, you start the first mission of the game on foot, without the robot. Then you have, I don't know, these two little human characters trying to kill an enemy mech. And it's difficult, but you can do it. Then more mechs arrive and you're like, damn, Mama did tell me becoming a carpenter would be easier. So you're left there, powerless. But then, some other Wenders come to save you and you finally get to control one of them. And it's easy to kill the guys there on the stage and you win and everything's fine now. This way, you will be showing the player the power fantasy that mechs represent. But, you could argue that the ideal way to start a game is getting the player hooked as soon as possible. For example, in Xenoblade Chronicles for the Nintendo Wii, you start your first encounter by controlling Danban with various Monado powers. Only then will you play with Shulk, who is still a newbie. In some Metroid games, you start with every upgrade, then you take a beating and you lose everything, and then you have to recover your cherished upgrades. That's cool. This makes it so that the player already knows what the game will be about from the beginning. But here, in Front Mission 3, the beginning of the game is already so slow, there's so much talk and stuff. You know, might as well make that power fantasy thing. That would probably go well. It would be nice to have that moment of catharsis. Now, I'll be honest here. I haven't played the entire game before making this video. Thing is, I got to a point where I realized the game really wasn't for me. That doesn't mean in any way that it's a bad game. In fact, I think it's a great game. I highly recommend it for people that are into turn-based combat and a very story-driven experience. I hear the story is pretty good too, which is corroborated by the experience I had with the game, however short it may have been. There are also 2 storylines which the player will follow based on an early game decision. I'm actually curious to know more about what happens. I just can put on 40 hours now. I do intend to go back to it someday. It seems like there are some serious themes of war going on here, revolving around a Cold War, genetic engineering, ultranationalism, etc. Very non-political stuff. Which reminds me of Gundam, in the way that it approaches the subject. It's cool that it's so grounded, actually. In Front Mission 3, we see our own world, countries that exist today. It makes the game itself feel more grounded. When the game is about these unbelievable giant humanoid machines, it might be cool to make what you can feel more realistic. Anyways, that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and if you liked the video, be sure to like and subscribe for more content like this. Cheers!